to another episode of Charlie Cat Presents. Tonight I have something unusual to share with you. Primitive carvings have always held a particular fascination for me. They're just so, well, darn primitive, I guess, is the only way I can really put it. And I'm especially drawn to those of the Native American people. However, even recently made pieces for the tourists are very expensive, and they really are far beyond my budget, so there aren't any in my collection, I don't think, right now. But I do also enjoy African carvings because they have the diversity also that the Native American pieces do. And so they are fairly easy to find yet, and even the older pieces like this little guy here can be had relatively inexpensively. Of course, some of them go for quite a bit of money, but you can find them at yard sales, thrift stores, and various places, and still quite inexpensive to find. Now, the African carvings, like the American Indian carvings, dealt with every aspect of daily life, but they also dealt with spiritual life. And in this program, this little guy is quite enigmatic and in some ways downright a little bit eerie looking. Now, my buddy Gil Alberg, who you've heard me speak of often, found this carving in a junk box at a church giveaway recently. And I will describe it as best I can, and then following this I will show you close-up images of him and the various aspects of him and the various features of him, which are very, very fascinating. So, as I mentioned, this, well, I guess I didn't mention, this I believe is carved from a very dark wood, possibly mahogany. It's a very closed-grain wood, and then a stain was applied to it to darken it even more. And the style of the hair is quite unusual. The style of the hair is almost football-shaped, and I assume that the lines that are carved into the hair represent the typical look of African American hair, but not the style so much. And the face and the neck are very elongated, and I assume that this is very, very stylized, and he has a long pointed beard, as you can see, and there are lines cut into the beard, carved into the beard, and I believe that indicates that it was grown straight, which I'll tell you the significance of that in just a moment. Now, the facial expression is difficult to read. He looks almost somewhat solemn or meditative, and one eye is a little higher than the other, and as one might expect, the lips are rather large, and the nose, though, is not. It's not broad and flat like you would expect it to be, although not all African American people have the broad, flat nose, but many, many do. So I'm assuming the horizontal marks that are on his cheek are probably indicative of painting that that would have been applied to the face, just in the same manner that Native Americans applied painting to their face. Now, as you look at the stomach, and this is probably the most unique feature, as you look at the stomach, you'll see that the stomach itself is another face, and possibly it's a mask being worn over the stomach. That was suggested to me by a neighbor, but I don't get the impression that it was meant to indicate a mask. The face is longer than the upper face, and it looks quite streamlined. Aquiline, I think, is what you would call it. The face, as I said, is longer, and as above, one eye is higher than the other, which may or may not be significant. Again, though, the lines are large, or excuse me, the lips are quite large, and in this particular face, the nose is a little bit broader than in the upper face. This carving stands about 16 inches tall, and viewing from the side, the neck is very, as you can see, the neck has a very angular stance to it, and the arms go straight downward, and the hands rest on the buttocks back here. And as they rest on the buttocks, the pelvis looks as though it's thrust forward. So this makes me wonder if there's not a sexual significance to the carving. Now, the legs have no knees and are bent at the hips, and the feet are rather large and firmly planted on the ground, flat and planted on the ground. Now, from the side, the lower head looks almost Egyptian to me. It has features which, including the beard, that are quite Egyptian. The beard looks as though it's braided, like you would see in an image of King Tut. The beard was braided. Okay. So, with all these observations, the question remains: what exactly is this fellow doing? And what does he represent? To be frank, with the pelvis thrust forward into the head, it looks as though he is having intercourse with it, to be honest. Now, could this possibly be a homoerotic piece? I don't know. So please, if you have any suggestions about what this particular sculpture might represent, I would love to hear from you. Please leave your comments in the comments section below. Now, one last observation. If you turn him over and you look at his butt, on the underside you will find an unusual carvings of squiggly lines. And I struggle to understand what those marks represent, and I believe they represent the body hair of that lower region of the body. Now, this could be represent a loincloth with a pattern on it, but a loincloth wouldn't be up under here like that, and you would also see it, in the front if it was a loincloth. So this is my gut feeling that this carving is in excess of 150 years old. But even at that, it was likely made for the tourist trade. There is nothing to give a clue as about who made it or where in Africa it might have originated. Considering everything, it is a wonderful primitive carving whose overall look and the lack of provenance makes it seem just a little bit more eerie to me. So I am always on the outlook for unusual pieces like this. Please stay tuned. I think you'll enjoy the photographs, the close-up photographs that I did of this carving. So they're coming up in just 1 second.